There's always been people that identified as a woman, but there also has always been perverts. And so to deny the existence of one while pushing the other, it's like, yes, I agree. There have been people that feel like they're in the wrong body and the wrong gender. That's always existed. It's a reality of human civilization. Also, what's that?
Yeah.
That's a guy in a dress with a heart on.
Yeah.
Like, there's autogynephilia is a real thing. Men get turned on by dressing up like women. Also, there's certain perverts that don't want to wear a dress, but they know if they do wear a dress, now they can get into the women's room.
Yeah.
They're going to do that too.
Of course they are. If you put the line here, men will come up to that line.
Exactly.
If you put it up here, men will come up to that line. You can't do it under the guise of compassion because, again, it's only about men. When you talk about trans men, no one is complaining. Let me tell you a little
in any way.
Let me tell you a little something about that, right? As you point out, they never talk about trans men. And in fact, when you think about it, who are the famous trans men? Very, very few of them.
Elliot Page.
A few other.
That's the most famous
yes.
one, right? Because she was a famous actress and then she became Elliot Page.
Yeah, well, actually, let me tell you something about Elliot Page's voice that'll be of interest. But what was my point going to be? Oh yeah, trans men, out of the whole trans deal, get the worst deal out of it. Trans women, all a man has to do is wear a dress, and he is suddenly a trans woman, right? But trans-identified women, they get double mastectomies, hysterectomies in their 20s and 30s. You know, every single young woman on testosterone will go into early menopause. Early menopause brings with it a risk of dementia, incontinence, itching, and all sorts of fucking problems you don't want to put up with when these young women think they're going to be young men, and they're actually turning into old women. And no one has told them this, Joe.
Early menopause. I know it makes a lot of them infertile for life.
Oh yeah, you know, it's one of the things that happens is when you take testosterone, your ovaries confuse to I'm not sure, some other part of your internal organs, and that means it becomes infected, and that's why you see so many trans men having to have hysterectomies. You know, if a woman has her breasts removed and then goes on to have a child later on in life, if they're lucky enough not to have been sterilized by the drugs, if they have a child later on in life, when the child cries, the tissue in their breasts will ache because there's always tissue left behind after those operations. And it will ache because it wants to feed the baby, but they can't.
God.
You know, no one tells these kids that. You know, the younger men I met a detransitioner, his name's Richie Tulip. He told me that there are, let me stick to trans men for a moment. You know, the only time that trans men get famous in the same way that trans women do is if they get pregnant, right?
Right.
And then it's like they're on the cover of Time magazine or something.
Yeah.
Because, oh my God, a bearded pregnant lady,
right,
you know?
Right.
And it's just, we've always known it. We've seen fairgrounds with bearded ladies. It's just testosterone. It's just an excess of testosterone. There's nothing magical or great about it. In fact, it's very dangerous for women on testosterone to get pregnant because they could pass on. I mean, this is how horrible it is. There was a study in the UK published by a gender sociologist, I think she is, who works for Sheffield University. And the study said, this is, what's her name? Sally Hines. And the study said that even if there's a risk of deformity to a baby, a trans-identified woman should continue taking testosterone because there was too much of an emphasis on babies born with normative bodies.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I mean,
so preventative medication is a denial.
Yeah. It's just insane.
Preventative medication would be a denial because you're denying the existence of people with disabilities as if they're not real.
Yeah.
Or if they're not equal.
It's something like that.
That is so crazy.
It basically, that's another thing with this debate. And well, anyway, sorry, I want to stick to trans men.
But just that language is so Orwellian.
Yeah. But if you look up...
But what a crazy way to justify potentially harming a child.
Yeah.
That we're putting too much emphasis on children that aren't harmed.
Her self-identity is more important.
That is so nuts.
Yeah, and I've been trying to tell people that this has been going on for years. That's the second most shocking story I know in this fight. Will I just tell you the first one?
Sure.
Okay, you know WPATH?
WPATH, what is that?
WPATH is meant to be the world leader for trans healthcare. It is where the whole world gets their orders for how to treat trans people. Okay? It is. This is going to blow you away, Joe. So there's a woman named Mia Hughes, and she published a piece called. She published a study called the WPATH Files. It hasn't been reported on anywhere. No one is talking about it. It's not a. It came and went without causing barely a ripple. She found out that WPATH, which briefly tried to make eunuch a gender identity, right? She found out that they were linking to a website called the Eunuch Archives. And the Eunuch Archives is mainly a repository of about, I don't know, I have it written down, but it's something like 8,000 short stories, something like that. And they're just pornography about people cutting their dicks off. Jeez. WPATH linked to this site. Not only that, but something like 40% of the stories are tagged minor. Okay? So these are the people who are cutting off young men's dicks, and they are sharing erotic pornography about cutting off young men's dicks. And Jamie has all the links. This may sound that I'm pulling it out of my ass because it's so hard to believe. That's another problem we have. Some of these stories are so hard to believe. That
and it's so hard to inform people because you're only going to hear about something like this on a podcast.
Yeah. Exactly. The press won't report on it. And when you think about, and the BBC deliberately ignores this. The BBC is outrageous on this issue. But look
what they did with Jimmy Savile.
Oh, yeah. But this is like...
Forever.
But this is almost worse than Jimmy Savile because there's more kids being hurt. You know, and the UK is addicted to ignoring scandals and to hurting, you know, to allowing children to be hurt. You know, what's his name? Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister. When he came in, he said he would end the culture wars. He hasn't ended the culture wars. He hides from them, while ordinary people still have to fight in court. People like me and various women who are fighting this nonsense. He's an absolute coward on this issue. But the thing about the WPATH files is WPATH, this place that's sharing paedophilic castration pornography, is the world leader on trans healthcare. Okay? They're the ones that are bowed to on everything in this. And they're the reason why doctors all over the world are giving these protocols to kids.